Hi, Sandy Shellis, an environmental coffee house. Now, today I'm making a video because I'm tired of lousy connections. And I found an article that really pissed me off. And it's called Global Climate Coalition Documents Reveal How Secretive Fossil Fuel Lobby Group Manipulated UN Climate Programs. Yeah, maybe we didn't know this. A fossil fuel-backed industry group was able to influence the process behind the United Nations climate assessments for decades, using lobbyists and industry-funded scientists to manipulate the international negotiations, a cache of recently discovered documents reveals. The documents include hundreds of briefings, meetings, minutes, notes, and correspondence from the Global Climate Coalition, GCC. They were released Thursday by the Climate Investigation Center in collaboration with DSMOG and the Climate Liability News. The documents date from 1989 and continue through 2002, when the lobbying group disbanded as its fossil fuel industry backers succumbed to public pressure to disavow its tactics. The documents show how the GCC influenced international negotiations, manipulated the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's IPCC process, and undertook a disinformation campaign designed to cast doubt on mainstream climate science. These fuckers sealed our fate. What was the Global Climate Coalition anyway? The GCC was originally part of the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, before becoming its own entity in 1995. NAM has a long history of defending portions of its membership, including tobacco companies that were facing an onslaught of liability litigation with aggressive tactics that include discrediting science, attacking scientists, and misleading the public. My God, corruption never ends. Founding members of the GCC were mainly fossil fuel producers and utilities, including oil major Shell, Texaco, which is now a part of Chevron, and Amoco, which is now a part of BP. Oil refiner and retailers ARCO, now a subsidiary of Marathon Petroleum, and Phillips Petroleum, coal miners BHP Utah International, and Peabody, and utilities American Electric Power and Pacific Gas and Electric. The United States has been complicit 100% in the takedown of our environment. Other companies, including Exxon, joined later, and the international oil giant wound up to go on to be a key player in the group. Revealed in the documents is a decades-long campaign that continued until 2002, intended to protect its members' interests by denying and casting doubt on climate science. Internally, the group acknowledged the dangers of climate change and the scientific consensus that it is overwhelmingly driven by the burning of fossil fuels as early as 1995. Deception and lies. This primer, it's a picture in the thing. This primer addresses the following questions concerning climate change. Can human activities affect climate? The scientific basis for the greenhouse effect and the potential impact of human emissions of greenhouse gases such as CO2 on climate is well established and cannot be denied. The campaign reached the highest levels of U.S. government, and with the State Department giving the GCC credit for leading George W. Bush to reject the landmark Kyoto Protocol in 2001. An international State Department briefing prepared for a meeting with the GCC later that year and included in the documents published Thursday shows officials were instructed to tell coalition representatives that Bush's decision was, in part, based on input from you. The Kyoto Protocol, agreed upon in 1997, was the first large-scale international agreement to commit to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The U.S. was one of only 3 UN members that didn't ratify the treaty. Canada later withdrew. You know, we've been ugly for a long time, and we've been all freaking asleep. What an ugly country we live in right now. At least my lifetime. POTUS rejected Kyoto in part based on input from you. POTUS believes, however, we need to show leadership on this issue to advance U.S. and domestic policy objectives. I wonder what they were. Influencing the UN panel of climate scientists. Now here's some meat and potatoes here. The GCC took a particular interest in the operation of the UN's official scientific advisory body, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, which produces the international climate assessments that form the basis for global climate policy and negotiations. GCC representatives regularly met with IPCC scientists to lobby the panel to accept industry language in its reports, the documents show. Tax returns show hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on an IPCC tracker fund to monitor and lobby the IPCC's meetings. Now here's another little addition. Technical papers and special reports. There was intense and lengthy debate regarding the rules of procedure regarding technical papers. The IPCC rules state that technical papers are to be based on the second assessment report. Several, including John Houghton, argued that all the technical papers met this criteria. After debating the issue, the GCC helped develop language which clearly interprets the meaning of the phrase based on. Although this negotiation was difficult, requiring assistance from several countries, the language proposed by the GCC was accepted almost in its entirety. How corrupt, ugly, and disgusting did it get? Sealed our fate. The GCC also publicly questioned the validity of the IPCC's peer review process and launched public attacks on its scientists while simultaneously using the IPCC's status as a respected scientific body to promote the credentials of its own climate science denial research. The GCC went beyond targeting climate science. In 1995, Exxon gave a presentation to GCC on how to counter the evidence linking climate change to human health impacts. These freaking people should be in Nuremberg-style trials. The collapse of the GCC. By the mid-1990s, however, the GCC's aggressive tactics and continuing efforts to cast doubt on accepted climate science had started to become a problem for some of its members. 9 corporations left the GCC from 1996 to 2000. 2 automakers, 1 chemical manufacturer, 1 utility, and 5 oil companies. Maybe they weren't getting any return for their investment anymore. So it said, Oil and Gas Journal, BP was the first major oil company to leave in 97, stating that the time to consider the policy dimensions of climate change is not when the link between greenhouse gases and climate change is conclusively proven, but when the possibility cannot be discounted and is taken by seriously by society of which we are part. We in BP reached that point. So in 1998, Shell also, Royal Dutch Shell, had pulled out of the GCC, citing irreconcilable difference with other members over emissions reduction targets. Additional takeaways. Additional takeaways. Infiltrating UN climate negotiations, embracing climate deniers publicly, but not privately. The documents published Thursday on the Climate Investigation Center's Files archive also show the GCC stacked UN meetings with its members. Some attended meetings transparently, registering as GCC members, while others registered with NGOs. Often GCC members outnumbered delegates from developing nations at annual conferences of the parties' meetings. The GCC coordinated to monitor IPCC meetings. After IPCC meetings, GCC notes reveal attendees met to discuss strategies for exploiting scientific uncertainties in IPCC climate models. and amplifying scientific differences of opinion. On at least one occasion, a contractor for the Electric Power Research Institute planned to keep tabs on IPCC proceedings. The GCC internally refuted climate deniers, yet continued to publicly cite their work. Exxon scientist Lenny Bernstein, who co-authored the GCC's Committee on Science and Technology Assessment, called the work of climate deniers Richard Lindzen and Patrick Michaels not convincing in a draft document in 1995. The final copy of that document included no mention of Bernstein's comments, and the GCC continued to cite the two, as well as other known deniers, at least through 1998. The GCC aggressively attempted to control media coverage of climate change. Press releases were sent to reporters praising media coverage featuring climate deniers and correcting those that did not. One document encouraged reporters to contact the GCC for balance in the global climate change debate. So there you have it. The stinking fossil fuel industry. Our takedown began a long time ago. The corruption is epidemic. It's rampant. You know, we say that we haven't seen corruption like we are seeing now all over the world. I beg to differ. It was there. And it wasn't that we weren't seeing it. We weren't allowed to see it. We've always been in 1984. Peace, guys. Have a good discussion. I wish I could do it live, but they're throttling me and slowing me down because of data. And I don't have enough money to get, well, I can't get broadband because there is no broadband here. Peace.